You'd be surprised how many boneheads think they can hike the trail and don't know what they're getting into. Dad took off his Chicago Cubs cap, the one he wore all summer long because he thought it would give our team luck, although it seemed to have the opposite effect. He scratched his head and smashed the cap back down. Black hair stuck out in tufts over his ears. I scanned the rest of the list. Severe weather. Duh. Steep grades. Also duh. Ah, now we're talking. American black bear and venomous snakes. Those are hazards I can respect. Oh, and here's the last one. Diarrhea from drinking water. I glanced up at my dad. Seriously? Black bears and diarrhea. I'm scared already. Maybe we can better just pitch a tent in the backyard. Dad scooped the burgers onto buns I'd set out on the metal camping plates and handed me mine. We should definitely do it. Dad took a big bite of his burger. Hike the Appalachian Trail. Well, yeah, I said. We've been talking about it since I was 12. I know, but I think it's time we actually make some plans. I stopped mid-chew to stare at my dad. For real? To tell the truth, I always figured the Appalachian Trail was a dream we'd talk about, but that would never happen. After all, it's over 2,000 miles long and crosses through 14 states. To do that on foot would take an entire summer at least. There's no way my dad would take that much time off work. For real? When? I popped the last bite of burger into my mouth. The next summer, after you graduate from high school. That would be a great way to celebrate, don't you think? Well, hell yeah, that would be amazing. Let's do it. The Appalachian Trail meant hiking through the woods of Georgia, North Carolina, Tennessee, and finishing up in Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. The hike itself would be incredibly cool. Also, for the rest of my life, even when I was old, I could work it into conversations. Now that reminds me of the time back in the day when I hiked the Appalachian Trail. It would be a great way for us to spend some quality time together before you head off to college. Dad threw another log on the campfire. The embers crackled and jumped. College. This was the last thing I wanted to think about. Contemplating my future was like peering into a black hole. But Dad had expectations. College is just what people did. Everyone should have it all worked out by age 18. A list of goals, a total life plan. Yeah, right. I was terrified to tell anybody this, but I didn't have a plan. I didn't even have a clue. So, have you started your applications? He tried to sound casual, but I was losing him. He was switching from Dad, my camping buddy, to Dad, the parent who knows what's best. The one who says I better step up, or obviously I'll be a major disappointment. A subtle shift, but it was there, loud and clear. It would be a good idea to get started on your essay this summer. I know, Dad. Look, we can talk about something else. I started to feel sick, dinner churning in my stomach. But Danny, you need to get serious about, Dad began. Yes, I know, Dad. Danny, it's time to get serious about your future, your education, your career, blah, blah, blah. But it's not like you can squeeze all your wise fatherly advice into 1 week and then disappear on another business trip. I felt bad as soon as I said it. But it was the truth. He was always out on the road, even, as expected, when he didn't need to be. Dad stared into the fire. He didn't even try to deny it. I'm sorry, son. Neither of us said a thing for a long time, just watched the wood burn into glowing red coals as the sky grew darker. Crickets and cicadas started their night sounds, and fireflies flashed signals in the tall grass by the pond. When I finally spoke, what I had to say came out so low I wasn't sure he could hear me, or if I even wanted him to. Dad, how come we never talk about coal? He drew in a quick breath. For both of us, hearing the name out loud felt like a blow to the heart. You know why, Danny. No, Dad, I don't. He took his hat off and raked fingers through his hair. It's your mother, he said. She feels responsible for what happened. I thought you knew that. How could I know when we don't talk about it? It's like coal never existed. Tears prickled behind my eyes then, as they do now, as I sit by the edge of Walden Pond and remember. When I close my eyes, I can still see Cole that last morning when I glanced back at the house on my way to school. He was standing at the living room window, like he did every day, wearing his Batman pajamas and waving goodbye. Everybody said he looked exactly like I did when I was 2, with his gray eyes and hair all black and thick like mine. That afternoon, when the guidance counselor came to get me, we were working on the isosceles triangle theorem in 8th grade geometry class. He whispered something in my teacher's Miss Pearson's ear, and then they both looked over at me. Somehow, I knew something bad had happened, like a premonition. At the funeral, everybody talked about what a terrible tragedy it was, an accident. Mom had been working on the garden like she did every May, planting flowers around the pool fence. Cole was doing what he'd called helping, using a beach shovel and a Tonka dump truck to push dirt around. When the phone rang that day, Mom picked Cole up and carried him into the house with her. But when she went looking for a pen and paper to write something down, he ran back outside, probably to get his truck. He loved that truck, partly because it was my favorite truck when I was little, and I gave it to him. By the time Mom finished the call and realized he wasn't playing at her feet like she thought, Cole had opened the closed gate around the pool. We still didn't know how he did that. Got too close to the edge and slipped silently into the deep end, still holding on to that truck. Cole would have turned 7 years old this year and been a 2nd grader, but his life ended the year I turned 13 and Rosie was 4. He drowned in the pool at our house in Evanston, and Mom was so devastated that we had to move. In fact, we moved 3 times in 5 years, each time to another house in a different suburb. On the outside, every one of those houses was really pretty, but inside those houses, nothing changed. Mom was drinking, Dad was leaving, and Rosie and I were trying to be perfect. No matter how many times we moved, we were still us. And to be honest, it wasn't working out so well. "Are you and Mom getting a divorce?" I whispered to my dad by the campfire that night in Wisconsin, unable to be silent on that too. Dad looked down at his hands, rubbing dirt off his knuckles. "I'm not sure. It's complicated, Danny. I don't expect you to understand." He was right. I didn't understand why my family's world continued to fall apart, and I was completely powerless over everything. Whether it was fair or not, I blamed my father for not making it better. He was the dad, and it was his job to make it better. Without another word, I unrolled my sleeping bag by the fire, turned away, and pretended to go to sleep. We didn't talk about hiking the Appalachian Trail again for the rest of that trip. In fact, neither of us brought it up again. At Walden Pond, my thoughts are full of these things I'd forgotten, like losing Cole and fighting with Dad, camping in the Appalachian Trail. If Cole had lived, we would have taken him camping, and I would have shown him how to do everything, like build campfires, find stars and planets in the night sky, and hunt for wild blueberries. But I never got a chance to show him much of anything. Picking up flat stones on the shores of the pond, I chuck them at an angle and they skim across the surface, 5, 6, 7 times. I was a rock-skipping champ. I would have taught Cole how to do that too. I pick up a couple more stones from the edge of the water and examine them on my open palm. One is a perfect oval of quartz, smooth and white. The other is a chunk of gray granite, with rough edges and tiny mirrors of mica in it. Maybe if I'm lucky, Fro will visit me in my dreams so I can talk to him one more time. Sounds goofy, but I really want to know. If he were in my place, what would Henry do? Would he go home and face the mess he left behind? Or would he strike out on his own, to start a new life and never look back? A few feet away from Thoreau's cabin site is a huge pile of rocks called a cairn that has been growing on this spot for decades. People who visit the site place rocks on the cairn, basically to honor Thoreau, acknowledging that he was somebody special, to say, "Hey Henry, what's up? I was here to see you." I set my gray stone on top of the pile gently, like a sign of respect, or goodbye. The smooth, white stone I slip into my pocket, a tiny souvenir of Walden to take with me, wherever I end up next. Then, instead of settling myself on the hearth of Thoreau's former cabin like the first night, I find a dry, hidden spot to lie out the sleeping bag behind a boulder. The warmer weather has attracted a lot of random hikers, and I don't want any company. Hopefully I'm still close enough for the spirit of Thoreau to know I'm here. Please come, Henry. Please. I need to talk to you. The minutes tick by, but time seems to pass slower here in the woods. The sky is sprinkled with a million stars, and the pines are silhouetted against the deep blue stretching over my head. An owl hoots from somewhere high in an oak tree. Some small animals rustle in the bushes at the shore of the pond. A mosquito whines in my ear. I wait and wait. The night stretches on before me, and all around me envelops me. It's also waiting, but for nothing, it turns out, other than itself. A loud chorus of singing, twittering, trilling birds wakes me up in the next morning, and I duck my head inside the sleeping bag to muffle the sound, but it does no good. The birds have decided it's time to get up, and it's pointless to try to get any more sleep. Okay, I'm up already. Thoreau never came last night. There is no visit, no dreams, nothing. I avoid the chilly morning air by hunkering down in the sleeping bag with only my hair sticking out of the top, listening to the songs of all the birds like a crazy orchestra tuning up. Here in the woods, I can almost convince myself that my problems in the human world don't even exist, which is maybe what Henry has been saying all along. Simplicity, simplicity, simplicity. Don't take more from the world than you need. Don't need more than you take. Somehow nature puts things into perspective. Are you kidding me? Hey kid, get back here with my stuff. From somewhere near the pond, I hear a guy's voice thundering into the woods. At first, I think he's shouting at me, which makes no sense. Then I hear someone crash past me in the underbrush not 10 feet away. Popping my head out of the sleeping bag, I see some kid in a plaid coat, red scarf, and black knit cap pulled down over his head, running up the hill, a bundle in his arms. I scramble out of the sleeping bag and stand up to get a better look. There, in the clearing by Thoreau's cabin site, is a guy with bushy red hair, dripping with pond water, wearing nothing but a pair of drenched boxers, and shivering with cold and fury. The guy breaks into a clumsy, barefooted run into the woods after the thief who apparently stole his clothes. After running just a few yards, he bellows in pain, grabs his foot, and unleashes an amazing tirade of creative cursing about what he intends to do to the thief, his entire extended family, and any domesticated animals they happen to own. I'm so impressed that I just stand there, staring. Spotting me there beside the boulder, the guy actually shakes his fist at me and says, "What are you just standing there for? Stop that bastard now, for the love of God!" He gestures toward the crashing figure swiftly disappearing into the woods. The insult and indignity of the guy's situation strikes me. Besides, what else am I going to do? Say, "Nah, you're on your own. You just stand there and freeze your ass off. I don't care." Of course not. So I step out of the sleeping bag, slip on my sneakers without lacing them, and bound into the woods after the kid who was cruel enough to steal a half-naked guy's clothes when he wasn't looking the other way. The thief has grown momentarily silent, maybe realizing that twigs breaking and dead leaves crunching under his feet give away his location. He must be hiding now, crouched behind a bush or a large rock.